Hi there, this is Helen here. I'm a market analyst at IDC Malaysia.
Hi there, this is Faraz, and I am a market analyst in IDC Malaysia. Welcome to IDC Tech Chronicles,
where we bring you the stories behind the data. IDC Tech Chronicles, the podcast brought to you by IDC Market Research Malaysia. So today we have the country manager for IDC Malaysia, Vijay. Welcome to our very first podcast. It's an absolute honor and pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
How are you doing?
Thanks for having me. Good. I've been good so far. So good. Start of the year has been great. Let's hope it continues.
Yeah. So just as Helen mentioned, it's a great pleasure and honor to have you here. You're the man behind the brand, as they say, and the man who's also helped us pushing this podcast forward. So thank you a lot for that. Before we get in, we just wanted to get an understanding of your background. Just introduce yourself to us.
Okay, so I'm actually Singaporean, though I'm managing the Malaysia operations. So I moved to Malaysia about 4.5 years ago. I've been here as a sales director initially for ASEAN, and then I moved into the Malaysia country manager role, and I'm still managing the ASEAN sales team. So before that, I was in IDC Singapore office, the regional office. I was an account manager there for some major accounts. I was doing that for about 5 years. So that's where I learned my sales basics. Regional accounts, so dealt with a lot of the MNCs and all over the region, right? Asia Pacific, excluding Japan.
Yep.
So when I took over the ASEAN sales director role, kind of familiar with the regional selling framework, within IDC. So from there, it was an easy transition. So after that, there was not real. There were a lot of changes in the Malaysia office, so they needed leadership here. So I was offered this role 2 years ago, and I've been doing that ever since.
Excellent. It's interesting you brought up sales because I read a comment about you online saying that Vijay is a true definition of a sales professional.
I know from who as well.
Yes. So is it safe to assume that you carry on sales as your passion?
Yeah. Well, okay, I look at sales very differently. So I think there's a lot of misconception in the market about salespeople in general, right?
Yeah.
So the whenever I go for client meetings and so on, I don't actually refer to myself as a salesperson. Okay. I go in more on an advisory role, right? You see, back then, I think about 9 years ago, when I was just started my role in IDC, I think a lot of people were familiar with the product sales approach.
Correct.
Right.
So that approach seemed to work back then, right? But once the technology started picking up with cloud and big data and all that coming into play, it was not about product sale anymore. So a lot of people needed to figure out how to sell based on need.
Yep.
So that transitions a salesperson from sales-based approach to an advisory-based approach.
Sort of a
consulting selling, right? So there were techniques like spin selling and all that we were trained on. But really honestly, when you really come down to it, it's all about making sure that you understand the client's objectives instead of pushing a product. Mm-hmm. If a salesperson approaches most of these clients that way, a lot more successful, and he will be someone that the client will trust as well. Straight away pick up the phone and call this person if they have any queries. That's how I transition myself as a salesperson, and when I build my sales team, I kind of train them to do the same thing.
Correct.
Expect them to reach a certain level of that kind of consultancy sales. Like IDC doesn't really have products, right?
Yep.
We sell solutions, so that's very important in IDC as well. So maybe that's why that comment came about, because at that time there were not many salespeople were transitioning into this kind of an approach. They were still very product sales. That's how that comment came about.
Okay. So from a position within sales to managing the country office, what was that like? What were the major obstacles?
It was a huge challenge. I mean, I know I understated a lot in the office, but it's nobody trains you to be a country manager. You have to change that mindset on your own. You need to put your team in front of yourself. It's more about the overall business objectives rather than just the sales objectives. So you got to look at all the business units rather than just the sales business unit. I had to change my mindset. So my mindset was always about revenue generation and how we can get a deal struck with a client. And when you step into the country manager role, you need to make sure that the research agenda, analysts, service, they're all up to scratch as well.
Sure.
So it's not just sales anymore. It's the product teams, it's the administration teams, it's the finance teams, it's the HR. All that was a challenge. And honestly, when I first took over this role, it was I was perceived as a sales guy from the Singapore office. On top of that, coming to Malaysia to run the operations here. So there's a lot of barriers to break down, a lot of perceptions to change. It took me a while to do that, 6 months, 7 months. I think I have fairly done that.
Yes. Speaking about you being a country manager and coming into IDC, my personal experience is that when I meet clients or I meet people from the outside, they don't know what IDC is and what do we do. So can you give us an overview of the not products but services and solutions that we provide?
Good question. I get asked this a lot, especially in the countries. In Singapore, you don't get that a lot, right? So a lot of people know how to work with IDC in Singapore. They know that we're not just about the data, even though that is in our middle name, International Data
Corporation.
So, but it's not about the data that we provide to the clients. It's about the insights that you can get out of the data. That is what a lot of our clients in countries don't really see, the value behind the data. So when I took this role, basically what I needed to change was the client perception that we're just not sending them spreadsheets of information, quantitative numbers. We needed to make sure that they understand what the opportunities in the market is based on the data. So from there, we built a lot of programs like go-to-market strategies for vendors. We designed programs around what is that right IT strategy, blueprints to adopt from a tech buyer perspective. We have helped government agencies in terms of national blueprints. So this is not really data driven, but in the end of the day, it is based on an opinion of the market, understanding the market, using all sorts of techniques like the pestle analysis and so on. This entire covers the data portion is what our clients in countries sees value from. So that's what we're trying to position here. So some of the stuff that we do in country that a lot of other agencies are not able to is that we can customize some of the information locally. So a lot of the other agencies, they're based on this is what we have and that's it. We will deal with the client's need. So that a lot of the things, the way we approach it in Malaysia is we understand the need, and data may be an answer to it, but it may not be the complete solution. So there will be a go-to-market strategy. There'll be what does the data mean, advisory strategy, all these kind of stuff we do for clients locally. So that it takes care of the internal aspects of how a client needs to strategize based on understanding of this market and end user perspectives as well. Through our surveys, we conduct a lot of events.
Sorry, just to recap real quick, you mentioned go-to-market strategy and pestle analysis. Exactly. So for people who don't know what that is, what exactly is that?
Okay, so to answer that, I think the best way to approach it is through the IDC framework. So this framework that IDC has trademarked is called the Assess, Prepare, Engage framework. So this Assess, Prepare, Engage framework kind of works across the board for most strategies. So what it actually means is, it's very simple. It just basically means assess your market from a buyer perspective. If you're a vendor, if you're selling a CRM solution, for example, you want to understand where the opportunities are, which verticals are showing growth in CRM adoption, what are the buyer perceptions like, what is the competitive landscape like. This is where we adopt something called the pestle analysis.
Interesting.
So that covers, if I get it right, is political, economic, social, technology, legal, and environment. So that's what pestle stands for.
There you go.
So that's one of the techniques we adopt, but that takes care of the assess stage, so understanding your market. But with that information, what you need to do is prepare your teams internally. So that's where the preparation stage comes in. So preparing your marketing collaterals to address the challenges. The message must be accurate. Your sales teams must be scaled up in order to make sure that they're addressing the need and the opportunities in the market. All this is internal stuff still. Then comes the engagement platform, which is the event or EDM campaigns or webinars, webcasts. This is when you actually engage the end users, the buyer community themselves. If you follow this framework, you're actually addressing them after they understand what you're trying to position to them, because you put them through this framework. Most vendors, what they do is they just go straight and do the event. And that is unfortunate, because a lot of the tech buyers don't even know what you are doing in that space. So if you put them through this assess, prepare, engage framework, you're putting them through a funnel system.
The whole process, exactly.
And that's what a lot of the regional players are doing right now. They're adopting this technique, and it seems to be working very well for them across the board in all countries. I'm trying to bring that to the table to local vendors here, because you see still like the big boys, they leverage a lot of the global collaterals, global approach, regional approach to try to make it work in Malaysia. Malaysia, and you know the nuances are missed.
The
right?
flavors are different.
Flavors are different.
Yep.
Yeah.
So what we're trying to do, because of our local presence, our local teams, what we try to bring to the table is understanding of the local market and positioning yourself based on the need in the market. So that is what we see as the most important thing that IDC is doing in Malaysia.
So far, what are the obstacles that are preventing
Yeah,
this
so
move
yeah,
on?
you know, honestly, IDC is not exactly the cheapest
Yes.
research agency, but obviously it's because of the value we bring to the table. But local vendors do see that as a challenge. But to address that, we're working with a lot of associations in Malaysia, government agencies as well, like MDEC. We've been working with PCOM. We've been working with some of these associations like Malaysia Retail Association.
Yep.
So these guys, what we're trying to do is we're trying to make our research relevant for these associations. So those guys who don't typically work with us are able to afford us now.
Yes.
So it is a one-to-many approach that we're trying to do, and the main reason why we're doing this is because we see that the local market has potential, and we want this local vendors to be able to scale up and compete not just locally but regionally. That is the main thing that we're trying to bring to the table, and that is the obstacle in terms of the budgets that are available locally. And also, this is a new, even though it makes sense when I mean it's very simple concept, but when I actually explain to clients, it takes them a while to buy into this idea because of their traditional way of doing things.
True.
So again, changing that mindset takes time.
It does.
But it's good to see that when I go to client meetings and all, they do appreciate this approach and they are trying to adopt it. It's good to see it working in this country now.
Excellent.
Great.
Yeah, that's great. So it's great that you've given us an overview from a public or external kind of way. Looking at IDC Malaysia internally, I personally have been feeling a lot of buzz, a lot of changes, a lot of new concepts, new strategies, such as the strategies you just mentioned.
Yeah.
What do you see that's coming for 2017 fiscal year for IDC, and how can we position ourselves to give the vendors and the clients what they are looking for?
Yeah, that's another great question. So that's one of my main focuses for 2017 and even 2018, right? So the challenges that people face in Malaysia, we needed to reinvent ourselves. Yeah. So we needed to be relevant to the local market as well. So like what I explained about how vendors, regional vendors, they try to use regional techniques locally. I have to admit, IDC seem to be doing the same thing as well, you know. So, but once our main strength is the fact that we have local analysts, local content, local flavor, and we are able to support local companies. You know, that is the main value proposition that IDC brings to the table against our competitors who don't seem to have that. So, with that approach, what we needed to do is make sure that what we're bringing to the table is based on local understanding, our traditional way of, well, you guys might know, IDC Malaysia has always been a data gathering center for the regional office, almost like an outsourced arm for the Singapore office. But there was an analyst based here that were doing the work here. What we needed to do is give them a platform to be able to be thought leaders.
Right.
And we had some of these guys available. They were just not given the platform. Now you can see people like Jun Fu, our ASEAN Research Director, stepping up. You can see Pranab, who we have just brought in as well, who's stepping up. Exactly. These guys are becoming proper thought leaders for us. You know, they're being sought after. Their comments and quotes are being sought after by the clientele. So that's how we had to reinvent ourselves. And we needed to produce local content that addressed the local market, the local need. And we're doing that. We've been doing that. Now the challenge is making sure that we are able to articulate this to the market.
Yeah.
And hence,
I think we're in that process
we're
right
in that
now.
stage right now. We're in that inflection point. If we get our message across accurately and effectively, I think we'll be in a better position to help a lot of local companies.
And we will. I think we will.
So some of the stuff that we're doing, right? So like this podcast is a good example, and I feel that this is going to be a good segue to a lot of other stuff that we're doing in the marketing side. We're doing a lot of press releases as well. We're doing a lot of briefing sessions that we never typically did. So these are things that we're trying to do locally, which changes the entire game, because now we're IDC Malaysia. We're not IDC Asia.
It's an independent, kind of movement now.
Exactly. So more like a local partner rather than a regional big boy.
Right. So with the emergence of big data, IoT, cloud, and the general IT spending, where does Malaysia stand in this integration, and as well as, is there anything that's lacking in Malaysia for it to adopt all of these concepts?
Yeah. Okay. So you can see, right? I mean, there's a lot of buzz in the market, or a lot of hype technologies out there. You've gone through the cloud hype, the big data hype, the IoT hype, and so on. Now we're in the IoT hype at the moment. Yes. So you can see there's all these technology buzzwords keep coming up, and our role in IDC is to make sure that we are able to define these technology buzzwords accurately, and that's basically the starting point. So when we are able to define it, everybody is on the same playing field. Then we can approach the market accordingly, and that's what we're trying to do with a lot of the government agencies, right? Making sure that when they push their initiatives down to the country, their definition of what they're trying to push out, like cloud, well, how is it being defined? Because previously, when just an example is, there were some customers, some clients of ours that came up and told me that we adopt cloud, and when a bit more further study into the operations, you see a server at the end of a shop floor, and that's their concept of cloud. So all that needed to be realigned, so people started to understand the benefits of cloud, and you can see how cloud is taken up in Malaysia as well. But cloud, big data, IoT, all these are technology buzzwords. What's happening right now, the reason why a lot of these adoption is stalling, there is uptake, some of these adoptions are stalling right now because people are being inundated by all these technology buzzwords. They just don't know right now how are all these, they know roughly cloud, how it's going to be impacting their business, how big data can impact their business, but they don't see how they should transform their entire business.
The whole thing.
Yes. So that's why IDC has come up with digital transformation concept. So this digital transformation journey doesn't look at point technologies or emerging technologies. It looks at a complete business process transformation, mindset transformation,
back-end infrastructure,
everything. So it takes into account how you can maintain this transformation on a sustainable basis. So it's not just adopting cloud to fix the sales CRM system, for example, through SFDC implementation, for an example. It is about how a CRM can impact the whole organization from a client-facing perspective now. So how we can enhance those processes, So that kind of concept, people are starting to learn that. It is going to take time, obviously. It is a mindset shift. Traditionally, if you look at how IT decisions are being made in the region, right? In Singapore, you see a more equal split. It's almost, I think, 60-40% in terms of CIOs making 60% of the IT buy decisions and 40% LOBs making the buy decisions in Singapore. In Malaysia, it's still 89-11. And this is as of 2016. So 89% of the decision still resides with the IT department, the CIOs and the CFOs and so on, right? But the LOBs are not having that amount of say that they are. But you can see that the trend is changing. It is changing. And when you
we're seeing more decision makers on the LOB
on the LOB side. A lot more influence is being taken place. Hopefully in 2018-17 we can see that LOBs are starting to buy decisions on their own, and that will really help organizations to scale up in some of these technology adoption, right?
Great.
And when you go to our events, when you talk to some of the delegates that attend our events, you will see they are struggling. There's myriad of challenges of what these CIOs face. Convincing the CEO on why they should implement a particular digital strategy.
Even the CIOs are in a bad position as well, being between us and between their leaders.
You look at the amount of information that they have access to right now. I mean, they are being completely overwhelmed with all these technology implementation and all these case studies, all these vendors coming there and doing sales pitches to them, right? So they got to somehow summarize all this and present it to their CEO based on the idea that they want to implement. And you can see how big a challenge this will be, right? So what we're trying to do is we're going there and helping them distill this completely. Get all the noise out of the equation and make sure that their priorities, business objectives are key in 4, right? And what kind of IT implementation systems will help them achieve their business objectives, rather than getting a vendor to come there and pitch why cloud. So once we get companies to understand this, and I think with some of the work that we do at MDEC, we have developed this digital transformation survey. So this survey is qualitative in nature. It gives you an understanding of where your business is right now, what maturity level you are in terms of digital transformation, and what you need to do next. So there's none of this out there in the market right now, and IDC has developed this to address the need of the market. We've been helping numerous Malaysian organizations, conglomerates, and so on to at least start on this journey. And that's what we're trying to do here.
Great. You brought up the fact of this is the only kind of value that we bring to the table, as opposed to other research firms. makes us different? Like, what positions IDC Malaysia than other research firms?
Yeah. So, I mean, if you look at most of my questions I answer through the assess, prepare, engage framework. So, if you look at other research agencies, they typically do desktop research, secondary research, and they provide data from their perspective, and they are able to provide insights as well. Okay. Nobody can actually take a client on the entire journey, like assessing the market, developing co-branded collaterals, which we are able to do, like white papers and infographics in Malaysia, and actually developing an event agenda end-to-end for these guys. So we have the full capabilities to develop this, to deliver this in Malaysia alone. So this was a regional capability that we have now implemented in countries as well. Research agencies, in my opinion, other research agencies are competitors. For example, what they're able to do is give the insights and give the data, but very few of these guys can actually take a client, a vendor client, on this kind of a journey, and that is what make major difference. Main difference is that. True. Second difference is that we have local analysts who are based here, who focus in the Malaysia market.
Not a lot of research firms have that.
And that, I think, it's a key differentiator, because honestly, you don't want to understand Malaysia or the Vietnam CRM market with someone sitting from London. You know? What you want to do is speak to a Malaysian or speak to a Vietnamese analyst and who understands local culture, local nuances, and that is key. That element of research is always overlooked, understated.
True. Vijay, I know you're a busy man. Thank you so much for your time. I just wanted to ask you if you can give the listeners any advice, any tip that you might have that you want to share with us.
Yeah, so I know there's a lot of naysayers, doom and gloom in the market right now. There's a lot of changes happening in the political scene worldwide. There's a lot of questions out there in the market. But one thing must be said. If you look at ASEAN as a benchmark, ASEAN has gone through a lot of political upheavals, changes, and so on. Mm-hmm. But traditionally, IT spending is still growing. Yes. Okay. There will be, what I always tell my team as well, and I tell my clients this, let's not focus on the challenges and the problems. Let's focus on where the opportunities are. Because this is a time when if we do invest in right strategies, we can actually make a difference. Because there are people who are falling off the cliff at the moment. But if we adopt right strategies now, we can really make a difference. And that's why some of these things that I've been trying to implement in Malaysia, I just hope it does work out, and people start listening to us, which we have some good success stories already. So that end with a sales pitch. Call us.
Pretty much. You know where you heard it. Thank you. That's really inspiring. Appreciate your time, Vijay.
Thank you both. So much, thank you, Helen, and for us.
And that's it for today. Thank you for tuning in to IDC Tech Chronicles. If you like our content, don't forget to subscribe and follow us on Twitter at IDCAP and IDC Asia Pacific Group on LinkedIn. If you'd like to get in touch with us, our contact details can be found in the description box. Make sure to tune in to the next episode of IDC Tech Chronicles, where we bring you the stories behind the data.